it's a frustrating battle for us. The real solution in Afghanistan is to build dams. Like there's a lot of water in Afghanistan. There's no problem of shortage of water in Afghanistan. The problem is management of water. The water washes away during springtime into the neighboring countries. But it's very hard to convince any lender, countries or international institutions, including World Bank, to invest in building dams, which is the right solution for this problem. So we are working on small hydro projects as well as importing electricity from Tajikistan, Uzbekistan, and Turkmenistan. A few words about, while all these security challenges continue, the country is truly has changed. Those of you who've been to Afghanistan, traveled to, every time that you go back, you see a new face of the cities of the country. A lot taking place, and truly Afghanistan has become a new Silk Road. Small example from the media, we have 17 privately owned TV stations in Afghanistan right now. Some TV stations owned by women and broadcasting for women only. From that to principles of free market economy, the telecom, for instance, is a sector that's booming tremendously. The first license that we issued was $5 million, and the fourth license that we issued for mobile phones was $40 million. And people who pay $40 million know that there is a market for that, and there's a tremendous growth. Some of the companies have more than actually 1 million subscribers. The rate of people who are carrying mobiles in Afghanistan now, it's over 12%, which is significant change. Right? We are also working with our international partners, particularly US and European, to create a lot of tax incentive to manufacture in Afghanistan, including the construction opportunity zones that we can discuss in detail. But areas that are right now of interest to international investors, and there's bidding is going on right now, it's oil and gas. US Geological Survey just completed a survey of oil and gas in Afghanistan. Copper is another big resource. Both China, US company, and others are very interested. We have the second largest copper deposit in the world after Chile. Iron, coal, and many others. Opportunities also exist in cement in Afghanistan, as well as agribusiness in food processing. If you look just briefly in the past 5 years, what took place in Afghanistan from a time where the Taliban were ruling, actually, where women were deprived of every basic right. Today, 27% of the members of parliaments are women in Afghanistan. We have 12% of all the employees of the Afghan government are women. And we hope that to increase this by 40%, which was the case before the war in Afghanistan. 40% of teachers in Afghanistan were women before Soviet invasion. That's what our target is. So the GDP, which was 2.4 billion, now is close to 9 billion. And also, from a no formal banking system, we have many actually, 32 banks actually, including 13 foreign banks opening branches all over the country. School enrollment, which was less than 1 million, and most of these students were actually, most of the schools were run by NGOs, not so much by the Taliban and the government. That has increased to 6 million children still going to school, but still the quality education is not there. That needs a lot more improvement. 8% of Afghans had access to basic health care before 2002. Today this is close to 80%, but it is very basic health care, and this has been our focus, to deliver basic services on the countryside, and particularly focusing on child care and women and mothers. Kabul Kandahar highway, when I went back to Afghanistan right after 9/11, the trip was 30 hours. Today it's 5 hours, and so is also the ring road is being completed. A few other statistics that, and I mentioned, we live in a troubled world. We have a world that terrorists are trying to build walls. 88% of Afghans call U.S. intervention in Afghanistan is a good thing. The concern that the Afghan has that the presence of the U.S. might be short-lived, that you may leave before actually the job is done. Contrary to other countries where the question is how long are you going to be here? Life is going on in Afghanistan. We may hear on the media about a terrorist attack, a suicide bombing on the roadside, or an increase of mortality, but that's not what Afghanistan is about. Afghanistan is putting its life back together. From culture, we just had an exhibition of Afghan arts and culture in Guinea Museum in Paris. We were bringing actually Afghan artifacts, one of the biggest gold artifacts ever found anywhere in the world, bigger than the Egyptian collection, to the United States next year. To the media, to the press, restoring the country, and a lot is taking place. But it's very hard to talk about the good news, or the positive news, or the soft news, or the life of people. So when you hear these kind of news, keep in mind that there's also different life in Afghanistan. There's a lot of challenges, but also very determined people to make sure that Afghanistan will never go back again to the days where we suffered as the terrorists. We value very much your support, your presence, your partnership. We cannot build Afghanistan without your support and without the participation of NATO and many other countries. We are very realistic about that. And this is the conclusion that every Afghan has in Afghanistan, that we are looking and seeking your support and your partnership. Thank you very much for your interest. We're more than happy to take a few questions.
My name is James Trent. I'm from the Osgood Center for International Affairs. I was wondering, what do you think is the #1 problem with the way that the United States is conducting state-building operations in Afghanistan right now?
Military operation?
It's just state-building operations in general, reconstruction activities.
The challenges to the state-building process in Afghanistan, first and foremost, is lack of human capital in Afghanistan. Shortage of qualified people to do the job. And that you can improve only with education. That you cannot improve with a degree. This is like human rights. This is like women's rights. You can adopt the best law, the best constitution. It's easy. You can do it with the support of some international consultants and others. They will come up with the best constitution for you. But it will not improve the life of women unless you provide for education and unless you provide for economic opportunity. So the challenge in our part, in Afghan part, that we face is lack of human capital. The challenge that we face in the part of our partners, underinvestment, lack of coordination, and also focusing on donor priorities instead of national priorities of the Afghan people. And sometimes this is done based on good intention. But for instance, it's easy to convince a donor to build a center for widows, for instance, in a province. It's also needed. But it's very difficult to convince them to pay the salaries of the garbage collectors in Culver City, which is also a face as a part of the government. If you don't do this, if you don't deliver this, how are you going to... It's good to build a new school, a beautiful school with a name on it, but if you don't train the teachers, if you don't pay adequately to the teachers, it will be very difficult. So coordination and underinvestment, these are the challenges on part of our international partners.
Daniel Robinson, American Constitutional Society. Sir, I had a question. I was wondering if you could expound on the efforts of the Afghan government in terms of judicial reform and also anti-corruption regimes.
Very good question, a very important point. A reform of when we started actually the state building process in Afghanistan, also connecting back to your question on the state building. We had many friends and many partners, so one of the concepts that was implemented was the lead country concept. So we have had certain countries lead certain efforts. Britain's counter narcotics, Italians, and reform of the judicial systems, and so on. And the way to implement this inside Afghanistan was to create an independent judicial commission to do this, to carry out this job. Both concepts should be revised, should be looked at it more carefully. I don't think it's such a great idea to have a lead country concept. Instead, we should create a synergy between all the partners that are on the ground. Second, creating a new institution such as the Judicial Commission to reform the judicial